Right, the first thing we need to do is draw a horizon line across the middle of the canvas. So when I say middle, actually I mean slightly lower than the middle, so kind of there, just a fraction lower, just so you can get some nice beautiful trees in there. You can use a ruler for this or just go by eye, it's totally up to you. And the next thing to do is you've got your mixed pale blue here. We're going to water it down even further and treat it a bit like a watercolour paint. So you're going to make this nice puddle of watered down blue. You can use it neat, you know, without watering it down, but it will be quite strong and we sort of want the trees to pop out from their background a bit. So I would put some just plain water down first. What you're using today is canvas board, and canvas board is brilliant for acrylics and oils. Some of them work quite well with the watercolours, but on the whole you'll need a specific watercolour board because it just absorbs the paint a little bit better and helps spread the paint around a bit as well. So we're just painting water up to that horizon line that we've drawn on there. There we go. And then we're going to use our puddle of blue and start going across. You'll see it's really pale, but actually we can build on pale. Pale is good. That's our wash on there. What I tend to do darker colours just at the edges. So I'll use a bit more blue that's a bit less washed out at the edges and have it paler in the middle. And that is to draw your eye into the centre of the picture. It's just a little trick that you can use to draw your eye in. So slightly darker blues in these corners just to draw the eye into the middle. So I'm touching the canvas very lightly, like almost sort of like feathering, you know, really lightly. If you push quite hard, it kind of makes little puddles and also lifts the paint, so you're having patches where it's a bit naked. And you just sort of gently fix them, or use a tissue to dab it off. But if you touch it lightly, it will just behave itself a bit more and not be too annoying. Okay, that's probably enough for the background. Just put a little more in the corners here. There we go. So that's the background done. We need to wait for that to dry. It won't take long, but it'll be much easier to do the next bit when it's dry. So let that dry for a minute and then we'll move on to the coloured section with the trees. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the trees, and you've got these lovely rainbow trees here. So I've decanted the paints onto the tile next to me, and I'm going to show you how to create this sort of stippling dotting effect with your paintbrushes. But first we're just going to put this little patch of black on, so that when we paint on top, the leaves are sat on top of the black, so that it pushes that black into the background a bit more, and the black we don't have to paint around the trees, which would be very fiddly. So you just want to put a bit of black and paint it just over 1 centimetre above that horizon line, all the way across. Right, when that's dry, we can move on to the trees. When I say wait for it to dry, I always just blast the hairdryer. I'm really impatient, so have a hairdryer ready if you are like me and just want to get it dry quickly. So the trees are stippled on. They're all dotted and they're sort of just dabbed on with different colours. So there's a few ways to do that. You can use your paintbrushes. In your kit you'll have quite nice new paintbrushes that have got nice sharp points, which is fine if you don't have anything else. Definitely use those, but you can split them slightly so they're a bit more, they can make little dots and things like that. Or if you've got some paintbrushes at home that look a little on the sad side, like this one, which is all tufty and bristles are missing and things like that, these actually are great for trees because you can stipple them on, they look really good. And a really sad old looking toothbrushes are great as well. So if you have any of these lying around, these will be your friends. If not, feel free to use your nice new ones, but just sort of break it up a little bit, the bristles, so you can dab it along like that. I'll just show you one that I made earlier, which is the more autumnal colours. So we've got the trees at the edges start higher and then it dips when it goes in the middle and they go higher again. Again, that's just a little trick to draw your eye into the centre of the painting. I always find as well that there's going to be that one dodgy tree, and I think this time around it was probably this funny looking one over here, but if you can start at the sides, by the time you get to the middle you'll have some tree confidence, and hopefully the dodgy one won't be in the middle. You may not get a dodgy one, but from my experience there's always one tree that will look slightly strange, but you just got to embrace it and enjoy it. So let me just show you how to do the stippling. You've got your slightly sad looking brush, you dip it in the paint and then get rid of quite a lot of that paint, and then you start just dabbing away like this. I'm going to use some yellow as well, so I'm not going to wash my brush, I'm just going to dip it into the edge of this yellow just to create a slightly different green in there at the same time. And then you just bring it all the way down to that black. That's tree one complete. And then you can move on to the next one. You can wash your brush or you can just get rid of some of it and just use the next colour. So I'm just going to go straight for it. You can change the shapes of the trees a little bit. This is my sort of slightly rounder tree perhaps. See what comes out. And I'm going to just do a little bit of overlapping in the middle. Going on to my orange tree. So you can use a brush, or if you wanted to try a toothbrush, it's a similar thing. You just dip the bristles in. So I'm just going to put a little bit of orange on this yellow tree. A bit more subtle perhaps with the brush. I'll come back and build a bit more on that one. So moving on to red. And put a bit of red on the orange tree. So I'm going to mix a tiny bit of blue in with that red to make a slightly darker red and turn it into actually. So I'll mix a little bit of white to make it paler. Okay, so once you've got your basic colours down, then you can have a little play and bring out some of the highlights amongst the trees. So again, you can use the stipple brush or you can use the end of a paintbrush as well to create some sort of dotty highlights in there. You're just breaking up all the block colour really, because trees have got sort of bits where the sun hits and shadowy bits, and you're just kind of paying attention to that and giving it some highlights in there. So although this technique, you can do it really quickly, but you sort of want to add detail at the end just to make it look a little bit sharper. I'm using my brush as well just to, again, add some of these details in there. Whatever works for you. If you find the colours a bit transparent, just keep piling on the layers of paint and it will thicken up and be nice and bright. Especially if you want to hide this black line, you might have to add a bit more colour in there. So you keep building up your layers until you're happy with what you've got. You've got your light bits, you've got darker bits, and you just keep building up and building up until you think, right, that's probably it. And then when you get to that point, you can use your cocktail stick. Sorry, mine's run away. Dip it in some white, and you can get the chunks that are coming through. You want them quite subtle, you don't want them to show too much, so just a little flick here and there. And again, you can do that with some branches as well, if you want to get a few branches in there. Little flicks here and there. It's just a suggestion towards the fact that there is a trunk in there somewhere. There's also trees hidden behind, so you can do sort of a few shadowy trunks coming through. You can do the same with black as well if you want to. Okay, and the next step is to paint the water. The first thing to do is to paint in this sort of reflection onto the riverbank. So you're just going to use a little bit of the colours you've got in front of you and just paint in underneath the trees, just to show where the edge of the riverbank is. A little bit of black underneath just to show the edge. Go, and then we're going to move on to the water. So for this stage, you want to go and get yourself a nice fresh pot of water, nice clean water. Okay, so now time to do the water down the bottom. A bit like the sky, you want to put some plain water down first. Not too much, just a bit. Don't want to drench it because we want to have a little bit of control. Because it's all rainbow colours, we don't want them all bleeding into each other too much. Otherwise it becomes a bit brown. So a little bit of water on there, just to dampen the canvas down. Okay, and then we want to use a little bit of the watered down blue that we used for the sky again, and just do that kind of in the corners a little bit and across the top. And again, I'm pushing very lightly because it sort of drags the paint around quite nicely that way and blends it in to the background. So with reflections, the few tricks are, obviously it's a lot more blurry and out of focus, so this is what your detail is, and in the water it's ripply and blurry, so you want to try and create that smudgy effect. You also want to create a downwards effect to show that it's rippling into like a big expanse of water. And you want the odd bit to go horizontal. So in the picture you've got these little white lines that are horizontal, and it just tricks your eye into knowing it's water. So I'll show you those bits at the end. The first bit we're going to do are these downward strokes to get it to look ripply in the water. So you start with the first of the colours. You want to water it down a little bit. And you're just going to drag it downwards towards the bottom. Reflections tend to be longer as well. It stretches out the image, so if you've got a tree you can make it a little bit longer in the water, that's okay. I'm trying to reflect the shape, so mine tapers off here and I'm going to try and taper it off there a little bit. So you'll start to see the colours pushing themselves around with the water that's already on there. That's okay, we do want them to blend where they hit each other. We just don't want it to happen too much so they don't all mix into one big colour. So if you've got trees that are multiple colours, you can do that in the reflection as well. Have your purples and your blues both in the same reflection. Just kind of copy what the other tree is. Just adding a little bit more water down the bottom so they blend out a little more. Okay, so that's your reflection in the water. That's your downward reflection. Then you want to do a little bit of reflecting horizontally. So you can do that in two ways. If your canvas is wet enough, you can use a dry brush and you can run it across your canvas, and this will suck up some of the water. It might be hard to see on the video, but it will suck up some of the water a bit like a sponge, and you can create little white lines that way. If your canvas is dry, because it's just taking a bit longer to do it, or the water's drying up, you can actually put these lines on afterwards with some white paint. So please don't worry if you're doing this and nothing's happening. It's actually quite hard to see, sorry, on the camera, but you just want a few horizontal lines in there just to show that kind of wobbly, ripply look. I'll put them on in white as well at the end to show you both ways. The other little thing to do is we need to put a little bit of black in the water now to reflect this black background. The black is a bit scary because it tends to spread everywhere, so just use it really sparingly and just do it very sort of subtly. Easier said than done with black, isn't it? But just pop it on, kind of as a gesture. We know it's there, but don't go too mad, because I've seen it where the black comes all the way down and covers this lovely rainbow effect. So you're just gonna, again, you want your strokes to kind of come downwards, directly down. can always add more black if you want to, but start really lightly, really gently, and then build up more if you want to on that part. The other little thing to do is we need to have some of the white trunks reflected into the water. So I'll do that in just a moment when I've got the white paint out. I'm just going to let this dry and then I'll show you that last bit of detail. So now that the water's a little drier, we can use the small brush and just some white paint and put some of these white ripples, these white horizontal ripples on. Just adds to the illusion of rippling water. If you find you get halfway through your water and the canvas is dried up, just put loads of water down and then keep going, because I'm painting quite quickly today, but if you're doing it in stages or if you're taking your time a bit more, just add a bit of water there and it will come back to life. If you're feeling really brave, you could put a boat in there, or anything you like, a family of ducks, whatever you're feeling. This is your piece of art, and you can go as mad as you like with it. Okay, so I've got some of those ripples in there now, and we just need a few of those reflections of the tree trunks into the water. And you can use a cocktail stick or your brush. Create that mirror kind of effect. There we go. So that's how to create that kind of nice watery effect at the bottom and the stippled trees at the top. I hope that has have been helpful. If you get stuck, please just get in contact and I will help you through all the difficult bits if you get stuck on any areas. But hopefully that gives you the basics of how to create the trees in that kind of nice mirrory water. You're sort of using them a bit like watercolours actually, even though they're acrylic paints. You're kind of watering them right down to create this effect. So yes, I hope that was helpful, and if you're feeling brave, please send in your artwork so I can have a little look, because that's one bit that I miss out of classes, not having them face to face, is seeing how everyone's piece of art develops. So if you're feeling brave, please email them to me and I'd love to see what you've been doing.